Hello and welcome to today's video. So this time we're going to be taking the first of two looks for a vintage Doyle sci-fi and fantasy book collection that I got recently. Now these came from the collection of noted paperback historian Justin Marriott, and he realised he just wasn't reading these Doyle books anymore and was happy to let them go. So I used to read these a lot when I was growing up in my sort of teens, and a lot of them were distributed in the UK along with normal sort of science fiction. So they weren't that difficult to find. Probably the entire range was distributed over here at some point. There's so many to go through here. There's almost 250 books. So I'm going to just split this into a couple of videos where I go through, I clean up all the books, give the covers a bit of a polish, and generally get them tip-top shape whilst I'm sorting them out. So that will be the subject of today's video. So sit back, relax, and let's get to it. Right then, let's get to it. So I've split them into two lots, and I reckon we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 11, 12, 13, 14. So we've got 25. I reckon there's about 125 books for us to zip through today. So I'm not going to dwell, because I'm going to do a proper vintage Doyle video once these are all into order, and I've got them mixed in with my my main collection. So I'm just going to give them the cursory once over, see if any of them need any like this one, for example, has got like an old $2 in. So I'm just going to go along and do this while we go through them, and then at the end I'm going to give them all a bit of a polish just to shine them up, and also I'm going to rub the top edges with my toothbrush just to make sure there's any shelf dust that's built up over the decades is being brushed off as well. So that's going to be the plan. So I'm going to get them into sort of like piles of 10 or so. As much as I want to like delve into stuff like this, I love these books of series where they pick a particular author and then they fill it with some nice short stories, usually stuff that hasn't been collected before. It's a really good way to dip your toe into a particular author if you don't really want to read the stuff that they've done long form. It's a nice way to get a taste of what that author is like. Doyle books did an awful lot of that over the years, which is cool. But me being me and being a bit of a fuss ass, I do like when I get new books into the collection to keep on top of it, and just to make sure they are in as nice condition as I can and as I can keep them. And it does make them more, I think, a bit more pleasurable just to pull one off the shelf and not see the original pricing. For years I used to not do it at all. So like this one here, it's got like an old 50p. I would just leave that old 50p in there because it would remind me sort of, how much I paid for it. But nowadays, when you're buying lots offline, in a lot of cases, that's sort of irrelevant, isn't it? You don't really, it's not like you went in a shop and bought it, you don't put the online price in. So I just generally have the books without anything in it, if at all possible. Obviously, sometimes they're written in pen by a previous owner, and you can't do a lot about that. But if they're in pencil, I will, generally speaking, get rid of them. Yeah, so a few of these I've got pencil marks in. Now, it's not every day you get so many Doyle books. Now, I used to read these when I was growing up, and I had a few Doyle books. I forget exactly which ones they were, but I had a few that I'd read as a kid, a teenager, and then I remember a friend of mine, he had a really bad motorbike crash, and he was in hospital, and I went and saw him. He was a huge sci-fi fan, and I said, can I get you any sci-fi books? And he said to me, yeah, get me some Doyle books. I always remember it. And there was one particular shop in our town called Bonus Books, which we used to go in, both of us. And they were really good, and I got to know the owners. In fact, my gran lived directly above Bonus Books, so I got to know them really well over the years. And they were always really good because that would be the place where you could get the very latest Doctor Who book. They'd always put them out as soon as they received the stock, rather than waiting on any sort of embargoes and things like that. So they got a bit of a reputation for that. And that would be the place where all the Doctor Who fans would go to get their latest Doctor Who book as it was being published. And through that was how we formed a Doctor Who group. But anyway, back to the door story. So my mate said, yeah, he was, I think he broke both legs. I mean, he was in a hell of a state. And he said, just go around and get me some door books, Jules, about 5 or 6. So I just pulled some at random. He didn't give me any authors. So I went in and chose a few at random for him. And I seem to remember when would this have been? I don't know. Sort of 84, 85, I suppose, when I did those. But I'd read them beforehand. And I seem to remember they were pretty cheap back then as well. To buy, they're like brand new, and like 25p or something like that, maybe less. And second-hand, even better. And I was always a huge fan of second-hand books, so I grabbed them when I saw them, All right, let me just grab my toothbrush. So as we work our way through these, I'm going to get them into little wedges, convenient hand-sized wedges, and I'll just give the tops and bottom edges a cursory dust off. These aren't bad at all, but you have to remember that even these earliest door books now are 49, almost 50 years old. So in that time, they're bound to have picked up a little bit of shelf dust, haven't they? So it's inevitable. Period-wise, door books, I only generally collect up to number 500 or approximately 1982, although there will be some selected authors after that I'm going to try and track down as well. But generally speaking, that encompasses the first sort of 500 books in the series. And the good thing about the door books is another thing which is quite old-fashioned today, but it was old-fashioned even in the 70s. In a lot of cases, the books had a door number, which made them even more sort of collectible in the fact that you might want to try and find them all or get every door book by that author. Certainly someone who maybe collects comics or other numerical series such as, say, the Penguin books or the Pan books, you know exactly what I mean when you see a publisher release books with a publisher's number in. You just can't help but try and get them all. Thankfully, the door books, when you look them up online, they're not loads of money by any means. They are actually fairly reasonably priced. And you can generally pick them up from as little as £1 up to maybe £3 for a mint unread one. It's really just a handful. They're a little bit more expensive. They did a horror anthology, like an annual horror anthology. Those tend to go for a little bit more. There's they did quite a bit for Philip K. Dick, bringing him back into popularity. The initials door, Donald A. Wilmheim, that's what they stand for. And they see, like, there's an example, number 366 in the series. I believe Donald Wilmheim historically was quite friendly with Philip K. Dick over the years. I think Donald Wilmheim published some of his stuff when he was at Avon Books, and he did the Avon. I think he was connected with the Avon Fantasy Reader. I must research this a little bit better, but from what I recall, Donald Wilmheim was pretty responsible for getting Philip K. Dick back into the realm of popularity in the early 70s and getting his books back into print. Because I think by that time he had sort of become a little bit more obscure. And, you know, the books are brilliant, so I think he did a very good job there. Donald Wilhelm himself is no longer with us, but his daughter, I think she's called Betsy. I think Betsy Wilhelm is still like the managing director of the company, which I believe, once again, this is just from memory, I will do a bit more proper research on this, but I believe it's now part of the Penguin Group. So there's a vague Penguin connection there as well. And they're still publishing today. By far their biggest hit of recent years was the Patrick Rothfuss find, Name of the Wind. Was his first one. He's done another one since then. Absolutely massive force in fantasy. When that book came out, I was a bookseller at the time. When that book came out, that created a huge sensation. I had multiple proofs and signed copies of it as well, but they've all sadly gone now before anyone asks. But yeah, he's very much active online, Rothfuss. So he's very he interacts with his fans quite a bit, I believe. So that's always cool when an author does that. So yeah, don't forget, every single one of these is an import. These are all American. Door was an American imprint, although they were distributed, at least early on in the UK, by New English Library. And you sometimes find them with New English Library stickers on. But the ones in my collection that I've got at the moment, I said I've got about 50. It's the Gore books, because I got a complete set of the John Norman Gores. Well, when I say complete set, a complete vintage set. I haven't got any of the recent stuff that he's done. But Dorr took over publishing them from Ballantine on book number 8, I believe. So Ballantine had the first 7 or 8, and then they were published by Dorr. And I think Hunters is the first one, and then they went up to number 25, which is Magicians of Gore. And I've got all of those already in my collection. And then I've also got the first sort of, well, sporadically, I've probably got another sort of 25 books under Door number 50, all in really, really top condition copies. And the other thing I've got is a really nice vintage Door catalogue. I think it dates from about 1982, which is the real tail end of my sort of period of wanting to collect Door books. And that's really smart as well. I did come across an interview with Betsy Wilhelm on a podcast, which is up on YouTube. So I'm going to see if I can get some time to listen. It's pretty long. It's like an hour and a half. So I haven't really had time to listen to it just yet. But it's on the agenda to do. I'll be very interested. So I know my viewers, half of them, well, about half of all my viewers are from America, and the other half, well, I'd then say about a third are from England, and then the rest of the world makes up the rest of it. So Canada, Australia, New Zealand, places like that. Mainly, obviously, English speaking. But people have said to me, I like listening to your videos because you don't speak too quickly. Like some YouTubers, they're doing everything at 1,000,000 miles an hour. They find my videos relaxing, but also they can actually understand what I'm saying, which is quite good. So I'm pleased about that. Something like book collecting. It shouldn't be rushed. Yeah, so when I unpacked these just the other day, I was going, I can't wait to read that one, I can't wait to read that one. So pretty much since the start of December, I've been having a massive, I've been reading loads of P.G. Wodehouse, because I absolutely love him. And I find his books incredibly relaxing, particularly when there's so much going on in the world at the moment. It's not exactly nice out there. And as I film this, the UK is in its 3rd national lockdown. So lots of people working from home. And I do find reading Wodehouse extremely therapeutic, because he's just such a great author, isn't he? But then I was listening to the Paperback Warrior podcast, and they were doing their best of 2020. And Tom said his all-out best book of 2020 was Solomon's Vineyard by Jonathan Latimer. Now, that was a crime book that was published originally in the 1940s. And Pan Books in the UK reprinted them all in the 1950s. And thankfully I've got them in my collection. So I found out which number it was in the Pan series, and I jumped up into my library and grabbed my copy of Solomon's Vineyard, which is the one that he was recommended. And that was his top book of that he read last year. So I thought I'm going to give that one a try. Something a bit different to my P.G. Wodehouse. Is a bit of a nice classic 1940s crime, even though it was published over here in the 50s. And so far, yeah, it's been really good, quite hard-boiled, which I like. And yeah, it's good. It's reminding me a little bit of Lawrence Block at the moment. The writing style, though, if you think of P.G. Wodehouse, although it's like comic literature, it is, it's a lot older, but it is, I would almost class it as literature. He was a real wordsmith who wrote, over 100 full-length novels in his life and dozens of short stories. Jonathan Latimer only wrote 4 books, so the writing isn't quite as accomplished, but still very, very good. The story's great so far. Thankfully, we're getting through these at quite a good pace, and that's the main thing. There is so many to do. I didn't want these videos going on too long, but it does give you a little sort of glimpse of what's to come when we look at these in much more detail. And we go through all the numbers, number by number, author by author. Beautiful cover art by beautiful cover art. I mean, I absolutely love these for their cover art. They're fantastic. I think that's definitely one of their characteristics, as well, of course, as having the distinctive yellow spines when they've not faded, which they do. So that's another little thing to look out for if you are buying door books. If you want a copy to read, none of them are hard to find. You can get every single one without any sort of issue at all. If you want a first edition, then that's going to put an extra little strain on A, your wallet sometimes, but B, just trying to track one down. And then, even then, if you've got somebody who doesn't really know how to identify a first edition, it does make it difficult. It is actually quite straightforward with door books. So this one, for example, this is number 62. First print in July 1973, and it's got the full number line at the bottom, starting at number 1. All right, so that's a nice, obvious first edition. All right, now we'll keep checking a few so I can show you what the reprints look like. And this is a key book. This is one of the more expensive ones because it's like the very final Fu Manchu book. So it'd be interesting to know if this one's a first or not. I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't a first because it was reprinted. So it is actually the first, March 1976. And this was the very last Fu Manchu book, I believe, was that one, and it came out as a doll. So that is one which is a little bit more expensive because of the actual content. Now, the other thing is, as I said, I've got dolls in my collections, and they are incredible high-grade copies. So some of these, look at that, it's got some writing on that. Some of these are not great, but when you buy a job lot of books, which I have, the overall, you have to accept you're going to get a bit of rough with the smooth, all right? So I always think, and this is what's happened with a few bigger lots I've bought lately, of Pan books and that, is that, all right, there may be a tiny percentage, maybe 1%, 2% of books which are like fillers, which are fine. Stick them to one side, you've got them as readers, or you can always knock them out in your own sort of job lot of books, which I do often. Or just discard them and say, that's fine, no worries. I'll look out for a better copy of that, because as I said, these are not difficult to find. What would make them expensive to collect is if you were buying them literally one by one off eBay from different sellers, but they do turn up in lots. People putting 10 up, 20 up at a time, which is quite nice. Sometimes you find someone's collected some of the anthologies. So, as I said, one of the more collectible parts of it are the horror anthologies. They're nowhere near as popular as, say, the Pan Book horror stories, but they are popular all the same. And I saw a guy recently, I think he had 8 of them, and they 8 door horror anthologies, and they'd gone for about £28 for all 8. And in actual fact, that's probably not a bad price for them, because they are quite sought after on a more individual basis. So, well, I suppose it is what it is, isn't it? But it's cool. But as I said, you don't need to look too far online to find these. If you think there's enough in there to interest you, it may be that you just think, I'm going to get all the Philip K. Dick dual books, or I'm going to get all the Lin Carters, or whoever. Tanith Lee, there's so many great names. Andre Norton, loads by that author. Now this one's actually got a little sticker on the front, so I'm going to take off that little dot sticker if I can. I think it's going to leave a little mark. Not a massive mark, but it is going to leave a little mark. But there you go. There we are. Anna, this is a good one to have a look at, because this is an obvious reprint. This is number, well, for a start, the number is much higher, but if you have a look, so it was re-released, but look, the first printing was June 1975. The lowest number is 7, so that means that this is a 7th printing of that one. Another little giveaway is the price, $2.25. So that's just a later printing of it. That's a nice, easy way to tell. As I said, they do. I don't know if collectors put much paid on having. I suppose there are people who just want them in first edition. I'm not too fussed about doors in first edition. I'd rather they were just the original jackets and in as nice condition as I could afford at the time, or I could find. I'm not overly worried about them having to be in perfect first edition copies, because I'd much rather just have a copy that I can read when I want to. Much the same as when Tom recommended the Jonathan Latimer. I knew I'd had that one in my collection. I'm glad I did, because I looked it up online and copies were, well, the cheapest sort of battered old pan edition was like £12-13, which I didn't really want to be paying that. But as I said, I've got my pan one, but even that's not in great shape, but it's readable, which is all that matters. This one's got the little corner cut out there, so I'm just going to grab my scissors. What I like to do sometimes is, when a book is like this and it's got like a tear, I just get the scissors on it and make it a nice clean cut like that. I think it just looks better like that than the tear, which was obviously there. It's just one of the little things I do to tidy a paperback up, or even a hardback, should it need it. That's a really nice one there. This one's got a sticker's been removed off the back, and it's still a bit sticky. So this is one which potentially could be, because the rest of the book's actually mint. I could certainly tidy that up In fact, look, it's number 15. It's a real early one in the Dahl library. 1971. There we are, 50 years, yeah. No tribute to John W. Campbell. There we are. So it's a really nice copy of that one, but it's got that patch on the back. So that's one I'm going to put to one side, because all the rest of them so far, they're just going to need a cursory cover clean, and that's it. They're as clean as I can get them. But this one here is a bit different, because that will come off, but it's going to take some work. It'll be like a multi-stage process, but it will come off and it will look great. Some of them, they just lost a little bit of their cover luster, which is absolutely as to be expected when it's been such a long, when they've been on a shelf for so long, probably been through the second-hand market at some point themselves, and have been through various people's collections. To be honest, a lot of these only appears to have been read maybe once or twice, and some of them not at all, which is really nice, isn't it? So that's written in pen, so I can't do anything with that name, but I can take the price out here. And it's interesting, some of these copies from Justin's collection have obviously come from America, because they've got dollar prices in, and others have come from the UK. Certainly when I had my shop, we sold loads of second-hand, and we had oodles of Dahl books. Loads of, these are quite nice. A few of these have got these. It's for the Science Fiction Book Club. Little flyer for the Sci-Fi Book Club, which is great. I love stuff like that inside books. In the old Penguins, because they're so much earlier, the number of times you pick up bus tickets and London Underground tickets as well, it's brilliant. I've got a little collection of those going now. I recently, I must dig it out, in one of my old Penguins, I picked up, there was a flattened down pack of Woodbines, and when I looked them up online, they're 1944, I think the packet had come out. I had to go to a separate website, because in the olden days, something like that, I would have just jumped onto eBay and seen if I could have found one. But you're not allowed to sell Tobaccoania, I think it's called, on eBay anymore. And that, we're just talking about that. There's the Book Trader. Look at that. Okay, you see. That's the sort of stuff you find in old books. I'm actually really pleased to get this, because I'm collecting Philip Jose Farmer. This is one I didn't have. I must have easily 25 books by him now in paperback, nice vintage paperback, maybe a few more. I don't know. I haven't pulled them all together, because they're all over different publishers. It's all over the place. Everyone seems to have done a Jose Farmer at one point. I'm really pleased that that's a first as well. That's pretty cool, that. I have to say, we're getting through them quite quickly, because they don't need a lot of work. Most of them, it's just the sticker, isn't it? It's just the price, rather, that needed rubbing out. And we got one with a bad sticker, which we'll do in a minute. But I still think it was worth splitting these into two loads, just because there is literally so many to go through. But I was very glad that Justin accepted my gracious offer. And this does go for anybody else who's watching. If you've got a nice job lot of a particular publisher or an author, and you think I might be interested, don't hesitate to drop me a line, and potentially I'll let you know if it's something I could use in my own collection. While I've got the space, I don't mind filling it out with more goodies. And these really haven't needed much sort of dusting off. They're pretty good, to be honest. None of them came bagged, so I don't know if Justin is a collector who bags his rare books or not. I mean, as I said, not a lot of this is actually valuable. It's for the content rather than the collectability, shall we say. But I think because of their distinctive spines and the fact that they're numbered, it makes them, you just can't help but collect them sometimes, and fill in the little numbers if you're that way inclined. Certainly, I have been enjoying looking through so many of these that I know I haven't got. There's loads here. So very, very few doubles, which is ideal, absolutely ideal. And you can sort of see why a lot of collectors can't be bothered to go through. This one's like a bit water damage, this one. Can't be bothered to go through and do this. This is a really good one. I've been looking forward to this one as well. This is a sequel to Around the World in 80 Days. You can see why a lot of collectors perhaps don't want to go through and clean all their books up, because it is a time-consuming thing to do. But I think ultimately it is really rewarding, and that's why I do it, and really actually quite relaxing. I certainly look at some of my collection that's still really not had, because I built it up over so many decades. Like my Penguin books, I've been collecting those for about 35 years now. So because of that reason alone, I ought to really go back right to the start and clean them properly. They're not too bad, and a lot of them have been sort of updated as I've gone along. But even so, I pull some out that I've maybe had for 30 years, and they're not looking quite as nice as perhaps I would have liked. And for that reason alone, I ought to go back and do them all, and maybe I will when I start. I'm not going to go down the route of bagging all my books. I'm just not going to do that. I want them there, ready to pick up and read. I don't want them so that I can't even look at them. I'm definitely a reader, but I am also a collector. So the very rarest books I will perhaps, like, I don't know, the Pam First of Casino Royale. That's an easy £100 book. It would make sense to have that in a bag. In fact, that actually already is in a bag, that particular one, but there are other ones that aren't. And I'm going to bag those up. I am also going to get, when they're produced later this year, some nice plastic cases to really showcase your very, very best books. It makes them almost like display pieces. And they're coming from a company called GW Acrylic, who do cases for old Star Wars toys. And they are on the case, making some cases for rare books or paperbacks, which I think will be quite a bit of fun to do, or maybe the very cream of the crop of your best paperbacks. I think they'll be brilliant to do that on. So look out for a bit of news on that this year. This is an awkward place on the back cover here, inside back page. Much harder to rub safely in that location. This is interesting as well. It's actually in, but it's there's the magazine of conflict simulation. This is like turn-based games, isn't it? I remember visiting New York in 1999, I think it was, and there was a place not far off 42nd Street, and it was called something like the Strategic Strategist or something like that, absolutely fantastic place. And it was rammed to the gills with like old Dungeons and Dragons and role play, tabletop and role playing games. Absolutely fantastic place. I mean, just mind blowing. And I remember going in there and picking up some vintage D&D stuff, which I was putting together a little collection of, and it was stuff that was still sealed from like the mid to late 70s, original, they called them modules, didn't they? That's a nice Philip K. Dick. Just fantastic, and the Complete Strategist, I think it was called. Just amazing place. And I remember going back just a few years later, and it had sadly gone. But I guess that was the sort of thing which, once again, would be difficult to survive as a bricks and mortar store. Oh yeah, this one here is quite interesting. Now I recognise that inventory. That years ago, when I wanted rare books from the States, I used to use a book dealer, and I believe they were possibly in Canada. I think he was called. It was a partnership. It was Grant and somebody else, Thiessen. I don't know if it was two brothers or if it was a father and son. They used to use that sort of inventory. I remember getting. Here's another one. That sort of same thing. I'm pretty sure they're not around anymore. And when I last saw them, they'd moved everything onto eBay, because they used to have their own site, which was phenomenal. I remember ordering lots from it, and they used to have lots of us in trade as well. If I remember sending over a big box load of original Saint hardbacks back in the 90s, which they were really pleased about. Some real early stuff in there. So if they're still around, pop something in the comments to say, yep, they're still trading, because I'd like to know if they are. Don't know if that's ink or not. Yeah, that was written in ink, that one. So not too many to go now, in actual fact, to then get the old polished part done. So that's good news. Yeah, hardly any of these have had much dust on the top edges, have they? Which is good. They've been obviously stored stored these in a really good environment. Unlike some of mine over the years, which have been unquestionable. It's always dry, but sometimes they've been a bit dusty. That's the thing that's ended up on a few of my mags and stuff, which, anything that wasn't really in a bag or in a box, a magazine box, has got a little bit dusty over the years, but nothing too serious. But at the same time, it's a little bit frustrating that it's happened, and I've had to go back and dust them off. But as I said, if I'd had all my books bagged, they wouldn't be in that state. So that is one of the reasons why people bag their stuff, isn't it? And also, if there's ever an accident. So where's this one come from? Look, Ron's Paperback Exchange, Phoenix, Arizona. So many second-hand bookshops going by the by now. It's a real shame. It is sadly what it is. That's from the book rack in Texas. Yes, this damn pandemic has done. I had so much great things that I wanted to do on the channel, not least of which do some. How's this for an idea? So what I wanted to do was actually go on a few book hunts and film how I got on. So I would go into bookshops and I'd say, look, I do a YouTube channel. I'm just doing a little buyer's guide to bookshops in the UK. I'm in such and such a place today. Would you mind if I did a little film? Drop off my card and see, I'm sure they'd be glad of the publicity in a lot of cases. And that was one of the things I was going to do. There was the London Paperback show, which I last went to about 2 years ago, and I wanted to film that. The last one I went to was fantastic. I loved it. I got loads of stuff. Met a few fellow collectors and that, but I didn't see any guests there. It was a bit sad. There was no authors, no classic authors or artists there. But a nice dedicated dealer's room, and there were bargains to be had. So I came away with as much as I could carry, pretty much. Thankfully, I wasn't staying too far away, so I didn't have to take it too far. But I would love them to be another one, and I would definitely be going along to that myself. But I wanted to film that. That was something else I wanted to film. Even just going to local bookshops. I've not really. There's only where I live. There's only one or two decent ones left now. But then you've got to start driving, which is fine. There is one place fairly close to me which has got 3 in one street, which is awesome. So when the next lockdown is up, I should be doing that one for sure on a nice hot summer's day, because it probably won't be till the summer that these places will be open. Let's just hope they've survived and that they're still trading. They were all pretty okay. Let's give them a dust off. Just one more stack then to do, and then we've got to get onto the polishing stage. So many doors. They're brilliant, aren't they? I do love them. Oh, right. Okie doke. Right, just going to get the last stack organised. Okay then, so last little run. And then I shall get the old polish out. So there's one definitely that's going to need a little bit of extra work. It looks like it's worth it simply because it's such a nice copy. There we are. I've seen this before where I think this is ink and it can't be. Yeah, ink. Anne's Family Book Exchange, also in Phoenix, Arizona. Yeah, in a way, I think it's a shame that Door lost their distinctive look with the yellow spines. But on the other hand, although they probably would have been seen in more recent years as a bit of a gimmick, but that to me, it must have been Donald Wilhelm's idea, and he was from that period when publishers would do anything to sell books. And they needed to stand out from the crowd, like Dell with their map backs, for example. And, in the UK, we had publishers were colour coding their books. So if you saw a green book, it was generally a crime one. And if you saw one with a yellow cover, it was generally Western. So this was the doorway of making their books stand out amongst the mass of other sci-fi that's on the market. I said, not so today, but back then, it's probably a really good idea. Now, there is actually another sort of publisher that was pumping books out around this time, and that was the pocketbook imprint Timescape. Now, Timescape, I don't know anyone who collects Timescape books, but I collect some of their books because they're the very first printings of the pocket Star Trek books, which I do collect, and I've almost got them all. So I do like the Timescape books when I come across them. But yeah, apart from Star Trek, they did publish other sci-fi as well, and I've got a few of them, but they're pretty scarce in Britain because they just weren't released over here, Let's give these a dusting. of those that's quite dusty, judging by the plume that just came off it. And it can completely vary from book to book, just on how it's been stored over the years, as to how sort of dirty it ends up. And the last few, I'm going to give the covers a little bit of a polish. They're not going to need a lot, but they are going to need a little bit, some more than others. But it will really finish them off quite nicely, because I'm going to go through and get these all popped onto a checklist so I know exactly what I have got. And if there's any obvious errors. I didn't find, there used to be a really nice door site, but it's gone offline, like a door collector's site, which is a shame. But I didn't have any trouble finding a list of all the titles that have been published with all the different reprints online without any trouble at all. And if I remember, I'll pop a link to that in the description down below. So if you are trying to put a run of these together, you won't need to look too far. It's an early Dean Koontz book. His early books were PBOs, and he didn't always write horror. That's quite nice. And there you see the New English Library, 30 pence, 6 shillings. This is probably a very early 70s printing. Yeah, so that is actually the first print of that one, which is quite nice. Really nice copy of that one. It doesn't need anything doing to it. Dean Koontz is obviously still writing today. He's a very, very popular chap. Last few here, really Marion Zimmer Bradley. And although Daw published lots of fantasy, it was the sci-fi that always appealed to me. The fantasy I always thought was aimed at the chicks. Beyond something like The Hobbit, I've never read loads of fantasy in my life. I read bits and pieces, but it's always been hard SF. That's the stuff I like. And I have to say, my most recent, my favourite author for hard SF over the last sort of 30 years is actually a chap called Kim Stanley Robinson. I suppose his most famous work would be the Mars trilogy. Red Mars, Green Mars and Blue Mars, which is absolutely phenomenal. And why that hasn't been made into a film yet, or a TV series, I don't know. There's a second one of that. I think the rights are out there, but it's one of those ones which I, for one, am quite surprised that no one's made it into it's not made it into a TV show, because it's a blooming brilliant series of books. And I loved it ever since I read the very first one. So I have got a lovely set of those in hardback. And at the time, I was so into it. I was a bookseller at the time, so I saved loads of promotional posters and stuff for the series from Green Mars onwards. So I've got some really nice stuff. I've also got some author book plates and stuff which are signed. So I will dig out my Kim Stanley Robinson hardbacks, because they're that trilogy, because it's quite fantastic. I've got some old dump bin headers and all sorts, so I think it will be quite interesting. One thing I do remember I've got is a solar powered mouse pad which has got a calculator built into it. How's that for an unusual promotional item? And that was for the sort of the bookend to the series called The Martians, which was sort of like in there just to sort of finish it off. And this is the last one. So I'm just going to pause the camera there, and I'm going to get these all back, and we're going to get the covers shined up. Right then, so we'll start off with this one. Now, this was the one which had that bad back. So it was a really nice copy. So I've got my Mr. Sheen furniture polish and my trusty little soft cloth, and I'm going to put a really generous portion of spray onto it. sort of dab it in just a little bit. I'm going to quite liberally dab this on. And just see how we get on with it. Because in a lot of cases, we'll just leave that for a little while. It should, over time, dissolve the glue. And in the meantime, I can carry on and give some of the other books a bit of a clean up. Now, some are just going to have to, they will be what they will be. But others, I think, are going to come up really, really nicely. So, I don't know really how much you're going to be able to see on film, but at my level, you really can see the difference when a book has had its sort of cover polish and just any sort of, it may have been the top of a pile and it's been like got dusty, which is what's happened with some of my books over the years. It just gets off that little initial layer of dust and dirt. Which often is invisible to the eye. So then we've done everything. We've been through the book. We've erased anything we can erase price-wise. We've dusted the tops and the bottom of the books. And then we've given the covers a dust off as well. Or a polish rather as well. And it's like, just see it there. It's like a little bit of dirt that's come off on the edge. It's just sort of where someone's dared to read this with, shall we say, dirty fingers, you know? How dare they? So we're going to pop them over there and we'll have a final look a little bit later. So here's the back to this one again now. Let's see if it's made any difference. Yes, it's coming off, but it's coming off quite slowly. As is a lot of cases with sticker residue like this, it's like a multi-stage process. So this has been a good first stab. So I'm just going to leave that there for a bit and let itself dry out again. As we work our way through another little wedge, another few, and then I'll have another stab at it. What we want to avoid is going too far in so that the book gets damp with all the polish. We don't want that to happen, of course. Very much looking forward to going through these in a bit more detail. And what I'll probably do, I'll split the door videos into maybe 3 parts, and we'll have a really close look at the books, what's in the anthologies, much better look at who the cover artists were, because they're all, thankfully, every single door book's all catalogued, so we know exactly who, when it was published, who did the cover art, who the editors were, where the stuff had been reprinted from, if it was reprint, although a lot of it was brand new, which is amazing. So there's loads of history behind the door books, and I shall be as fascinated to learn about that as I'm sure you will be when you actually get to watch them. So they'll be coming up over the next couple of months or so. But like that one there, it says a door books original. Meaning it's not been out anywhere else before. It's an early one. Bit of a sticker mark on the front there. As I said, I'm not expecting them to be perfect, but this will make this will definitely still make a difference to the overall feel of the collection, and maybe put a little bit of luster back into the covers at the same time, which is really nice, and I think a cool thing to do, since these are all nice glossy covers. sort of see where they do come up clean on the edges there. Alright, let's go back to this one. Still clammy, but it's already looking better, isn't it? So a bit more polish. Now it's dried off and we'll give it another try. Yeah, it's definitely coming. A few more stubborn bits, I would say, where the glue was particularly bad. But we're almost there. I'm going to be a bit more liberal with my next bit, because I can see definitely making progress now. Just working the polish into the back cover, which is taking a bit of time, but it is working. Okay. Right, I'm going to leave that again because I think one more go we'll virtually be there. Zoom through a few more of these. Quite a bit coming off some of them. Others a bit more new, and maybe they've just not had so much handling, so they're in better condition. But I do this sometimes on older books from, say, the 40s or 50s, where they've had that extra few decades to get grubby, and I look at or they've been in the home of a smoker. The spines have all got nicotine on the spine, and you look at the state of your duster when you finish. It's like, wow, look at the state of it. With the old Penguin books, of course, you can't polish them because the covers are like, it's just paper. They're like matte finish. But with those ones, the thing to look out for, as well as smokers and pipe smokers, it's open fires. So back then, there was lots of houses which had an open coal fire in their front rooms, and that would cause the room over the years to fill with soot, and the soot would end up going on the tops of books, and it would stain the spines. Something black they'd go to over the course of years. So you find with some Penguins, they've got a really, really dark spine, but when you get deep into it, you take the dust wrapper off, for example, underneath their mint, and it's because they've just been in that sooty atmosphere, you know. Now this is another one which has actually suffered. It's got a bit of sticker residue, so I'm just going to give it a straight on one and then pop it over to the side and let that work in a bit. Let's go back to the one we've been working on for ages, because we're almost on the last bit of this now. I reckon we're almost ready. Yeah, one last real push, and I think this should come off now. Well, there are still a couple of stubborn bits. Still not quite there. God, this was a real pain, this one. Blimey. Almost done. Right, I'm going to let it go one more time. I'll let that dry out a bit further, but that's almost there. I thought that would have done it, but not quite still. Thankfully, out of the entire run that we've done today, that was the only one with a really, really bad sort of sticker mark, was that one. And it must have been like an import sticker or something like that, which had been pulled off. They'd done a really, really bad job at it, and then it had been left all sticky for years, like, and had picked up all manner of horribleness. Bits of carpet and fluff and who knows what. And we don't want that, do we? That's not what the doctor ordered. So I will definitely have a few spares, which eventually I will get listed onto eBay. I do pop my spare books on there when I get a chance. I've got 500 or 600 pounds to list. I'm getting through them slowly, and they're selling. It's just a matter of me having time to, well, a bit of time like now, really, when I'm filming. I got all the camera equipment. That's a good time to photograph the books to get them looking nice and clear for an eBay listing. So I'll put the link up to my channel now. And if you do fancy, I will have just a handful of spares of these, which are doubles of my own collection. So by the time you watch this, they'll probably be sorted, and I'll be able to have all my spares up on eBay. And I always start my spare books really cheap because they're only doubles. I just want to get them in the hands of a different collector. If I've already got it, there's no point having doubles of books, is there? So back to this one again. Getting the last few bits of stickiness off it. It's almost there. It's still not quite dried out, this. I want to be really careful, so I'm going to give it a little bit further, because you see, look, it's still sticky, but it's almost there. Let's see how this one was getting on. This was another one which was quite bad. Yeah, this one's that came off quite easily. And once the cloth is sort of impregnated with polish, you don't need to keep spraying it until it dries out again. Lovely. Which it has now. So people have said to me, where do you get all your stuff? So my tools are the trade, as it were. So these cloths here, you can just pick up these or something similar in just like a Poundland or pound shop, dollar store, that sort of thing. Pack of 5 for like £1 or 3 for £1. To be honest, these ones that I use, I've got 3 or 4 that I cycle in and out of. So I do find them perfect for cleaning my glasses as well. So I've usually got one in a desk or something nearby, or where I'm working, in a bag. So I always have a few to hand. But the ones that I've had them for so long, and they've sort of over the years, they've sort of got softer after numerous goes through the washing machine. So I'll only use this one on this lot of books and the next lot, and then I'll get it into the wash again. So it cleans it up. But each time it gets washed, it does seem to get even thinner and more versatile. They're really good in the hand, these, but they don't cost anything. They just you just need to get. I believe these were ones which were, although they're really faded now, they were much like brighter and more like a door book, in fact, colour-wise, when they were brand new. So they're the sort of thing you want to be looking for, but they're just soft. There's no adhesiveness to them at all, no abrasiveness rather. It's just a soft duster designed for like windows, that sort of thing, furniture. And obviously the Mr. Sheen here, I don't think this is particularly difficult to find in the UK, although it is. I do find it is only the bigger supermarkets that are stocking it nowadays. So someone wrote to me and said they had looked everywhere for Mr. Sheen and hadn't had a lot of success. So in the end, they got some out of mail order out of Ireland and got it exported to where they live. And I think that was the States. So evidently it's a British brand. Been around a long time, Mr. Sheen, but it is just, it says it doesn't say French polish, it's multi-surface polish. But it's the one that, out of all the ones I've had over the years, it seems to be the one that works best for me, you know. And it doesn't smell too bad. It doesn't smell too like, ugh, you know, because that would be the pits. Well, we've not done anything like as many as I'd hoped for, and it's still been like a quarter an hour of cleaning. So I don't think I'm going to bore you any longer with any more cleaning per se. What I'll do, I shall just pause the camera there. I'll get a load more of these done, so I'm just down to like one little pile, and then I'll restart the camera and we'll do like a little summing up. All right. So I will be back momentarily. So I'm almost done with cleaning them all now. Here's that one which we were looking at earlier, which has now come up really, really nicely, and that horrible sticker mark is virtually gone, which is what we were looking for. I've just got probably another 12 or so to do, and then that's this first half of the door book's done. I'm glad I did cut it there, because I've been at this for about another 3/4 of an hour, if not a little bit longer, giving all these covers a clean. I did stop to have a little peek in a few of them. I made a few mental notes of ones that I want to read sooner rather than later. But I hope you have enjoyed this first look at the door books. So this is only half of the mother load of the collection that I got, and I have got approximately this much to go again. And then we'll sort of break them down in a bit more detail. So once again, thank you for Justin for allowing me to buy these off him. Very reasonable job lot price. And I hope you've enjoyed watching me go through and clean them. It's certainly been a bit of a labour of love, these, and this is only the first half, so I'm going to do the second half probably tomorrow when I've got a couple more hours spare. So there you go, that concludes the first part of these door books. I do hope you have enjoyed watching me clean these and get them looking shipshape and Bristol fashion. I've certainly enjoyed going through them. If you have enjoyed today's video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Do please consider subscribing if you've not already for regular vintage paperback content, and I'll see you in just a few weeks' time when we'll have a look at the second part of this amazing door collection. Thanks for watching today. Bye.